Hey, my name is Kevin Martin. I'm the co-founder of Unspun, and I beat the Austin Path by building custom jeans with robots.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast, the show that shows you that you can make an impact and benefit yourself personally in the process. Joining me today is Kevin Martin, the CTO and co-founder of Unspun, a company making bespoke 3D printed jeans. Using scanning and robotics technology, Unspun creates personalized jeans just for you, and it's way, way, way faster than the traditionally wasteful and costly pipeline of today's fashion. Unspun has raised over $10 million in funding so far, and Kevin himself has been named to Forbes 30 Under 30. The company was listed on Time's Best Inventions and Fast Company's World-Changing Ideas. Unspun is a truly brilliant approach to bringing robotics and tech to one of the most harmful, wasteful, and archaic industries on the planet, clothing. So here's Kevin Martin, CTO and co-founder of Unspun. Custom jeans with robots, something that all of us have aspired to create in our life. I know I have created a number of technologies along these lines, but you beat me to it, dang it. So how did you get involved in this seemingly wacky random idea?
Yeah, depending on who counts, apparel is like top three, top five dirtiest industries in the world. And a big part of that is just because it's so massively labor intensive. It just takes a lot of time to make a pair of jeans. When you buy jeans with like rips and tears in it, it's typically not robots that did that. It's just someone with inflatable legs and a piece of sandpaper. And so I was thinking with my co-founders about where our biggest impact in the world could be. We all really felt like climate was probably one of the biggest challenges of our generation. And apparel is this really fascinating opportunity because of these really dirty, big industries. It's by far the one that's the least efficient. It takes a big brand 9 months to make a t-shirt because they have to plan things so far out and try to get labor costs down. And so it's just this big guessing game of what might sell 9 months from now. And so like August, September 2019, all these brands saying like 2020 is going to be a big year for retail, making huge orders, huge amounts of carbon and energy into these. And then COVID hits and no one buys things and all of this product goes to waste. So we were really thinking about how do we make a old archaic process way more efficient. And a really fundamental cornerstone of that is, can you use technology to automate a massive chunk of the manufacturing so that you can make things really, really fast?
Well, that makes sense. So I'm curious, when you get ideas like this, what was the catalyst? Was it a documentary, an article? How did you begin to become aware that this was an issue?
Totally. My co-founder, Beth, was the original visionary of the Unspun mission. She was working in the outdoor industry, and I was going to say she was inspired, but maybe the right phrase is she was appalled at how she would sit in meetings where, the general tone of it was opt outside, save the environment, leave no trace. And then in the same meeting, say things like, oh, well, we have 400 something extra tents in this Arizona store, but we need to burn them because if we donate them and homeless people sleep in them, it makes our brand look bad. So we have to like disintegrate these. And she was like, really? Like the same meeting that we were talking about our new sustainability campaign, we're saying, God forbid, there's homeless people sleeping in our excess tents. So she was really trying to think about like, okay, I though I'm offended as a human, I understand that business and capitalism is the driving force in our world, and we have to find an answer that can satisfy that angle as well. So she was really thinking about like, could we, the 3D printing was kind of exploding. Like, could we make clothes as fast as 3D printing? What would it take to just like hit go and have something come out quick? So she was really thinking about this opportunity of fundamentally automation in apparel manufacturing. And Walden, my other co-founder, teamed up with her shortly thereafter, after they met at Stanford. And then as any good millennial, I met them on the internet. So my background was robotics prior to this, and worked in robotic camera motion. And
Cool.
I loved working with robots,
Yeah.
but I was really struggling with, like I wake up every day and I film K-pop with robots, and I just don't feel like I'm making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Not to rag on K-pop if you're a huge K-pop fan, but
Oh, yeah.
I was really like,
I mean, who isn't?
I exactly. But I was like, I have so much opportunity in my life, and I'm so privileged to be in the position that I am. And and I need to spend my energy working on something that the planet needs. Because if I won't do it with all the privilege that I have, then how can I expect anyone else to? So I was really looking for a meaty challenge in the robotics adjacent world, and Matt Bethenwalden talking about this new vision for apparel, and I just got sucked in, and so that was, gosh, about 5 years ago, and now we're off and running and starting to see that like first big inflection point in it.
That's brilliant, but I love the idea that sitting in a board meeting and just hearing very Mr. Burns-esque comments escape your mouth. Like, say, wait a minute, am I the evil one here? Like, how can we get more preteens
absolutely
hooked on vape juice? It's a certain point, like, can we just rewind that sentence real quick? Let's just take a step back and realize what we're discussing. I'm very glad that she had that moment instead of just glossing over it and then saying, oh, you know what, forget it. Boys will be boys, business people will be business people, that kind of thing. So she said, hey, maybe I've got a problem. And it's interesting that the both of you came at this realization, because that is sort of the premise of the show in general, is the realization of, if you're smart, if you have privilege, all the things you said, where do you want to be spending your time? And is money the only objective? Is that it? Or is there something else that makes a life well lived? And that's the fundamental question that we're trying to answer on this show. What does success mean? And is success just Lamborghinis and private jets and all of that? Or is success something else? And what on your deathbed are you going to be proud of? I mean, these are the central themes that we tackle on this show.
Totally.
So it's exciting.
Very cool. I mean, you mentioned Mr. Burns, and this is actually a very fundamental part of our strategy. And we even talk about it internally as like the Mr. Burns test. Like, whether you like it or not, Mr. Burns is who drives a massive part of this world. For those that don't know the reference, I believe it's from The Simpsons. Like, picture the most like, just capitalist, finance focused, I don't care about anything else than profits type persona. And ultimately, that is still where a lot of decisions need to go through. So we think about our mission towards climate and sustainability and inclusivity and all of these things through the Mr. Burns test. If it's not faster, better, cheaper, and makes someone make more money, it's not going to work. And so we've really kind of rooted the Unspun strategy in this idea of doing good while doing well. Like, it needs to be profitable. It needs to be faster, better, cheaper. It needs to just satisfy all that Mr. Burns cares about, and it needs to be better for the environment. And I think that's become a really, really important factor in our success up until now.
That makes sense, and I'm going to gatekeep my audience here and say, if anybody doesn't know who Mr. Burns is, they're not welcome to be a part of this show. That they're forbidden. They're forbidden from watching this or future episodes. You're X'd out. That's the end of it.
Homework.
It's very important, because if you don't know The Simpsons, you won't understand anything. No, but it's interesting that you use the Mr. Burns as a positive test, because when you first said that, I thought it's like a negative sense. Like, would Mr. Burns approve of this, then we don't do it. But you're actually flipping it and saying, no, we recognize that for better or for worse, that is the climate of business as it exists, and we have to operate within those parameters. So we have to do good while we do well. And I think that's sort of the mantra of the B Corp, which you guys became. And I'm very fascinated with the concept of the B Corp in general versus a traditional corporation. So maybe you can shed some light on what that difference is and why you elected to become a B Corp.
Totally. A new movement. There's also kind of two variations of it. There's a legal structure of a B Corp as opposed to a Delaware C Corp, or I guess any state C Corp. And then there's also a certification called Benefit Corporation or B Corp. And really, it's a pledge to a stake in the ground saying, as an entity, as a business, as a Mr. Burns for-profit business, we exist, yes, to maximize profits, but also to maximize a global, like, human net benefit. Meaning that we think about, yes, profit is important, but we also have an obligation and a duty to our shareholders that we're thinking about workers' rights elsewhere in the world. We're thinking about our, play in automation and how that affects a changing world. We're thinking about climate. So it basically is a commitment to not only be optimizing for profit, but also the planet. And it's gaining momentum, and it's becoming really cool to see, at the beginning of B Corp, I think it's been around, I wouldn't know, maybe 10-ish years, maybe slightly more. It was very fringe, and now suddenly it's becoming cool. and it's a really difficult process to do. It takes hundreds of hours. There's all sorts of transparency. You have to kind of go through this every year. But it's becoming something people recognize, and consumers say, hey, no, I want to buy from this company. I want to give this Mr. Burns my money because I agree and want to be thinking about more than just this product, but what's behind it and what are the side effects and outcomes of that.
Yeah, and that makes sense because we've seen we've seen what happens in the traditional corporate model of the stock market companies, publicly traded companies. When growth is the only thing that matters, then it doesn't matter how you get there. All that matters is that you sell more units. It doesn't matter if you're polluting the planet. None of the rest of the stuff matters. And that's where we find ourselves in that predicament that I think many of us find so frustrating because we see it's, your growth over here is just garbage pollution over there. So when your
Right.
only objective and the only force that's holding you accountable is profits at all costs, then it's almost per definition that you will not care about this other stuff. Would you argue that it is per definition that you won't care? How likely is it that a non-B Corp will instill those values realistically?
I mean, you certainly still can. And I think of it kind of as like a spectrum. Like there's the purely, I don't care at all about the planet environment. I just care about profits angle. To the other side, there's the like, I want to be, a perfect influence. I want to do everything perfect. I want to recycle everything. I want to minimize my carbon footprint. I don't want to travel. But then I think in that angle, if your goal is global impact, you also miss out because if you're this tiny rowboat doing everything perfectly, like you're not going to move the world forward because you can't carry much. If you're that big cruise ship doing everything wrong, bending that 1 degree has a net bigger impact than being a tiny little boat doing everything right. So to me, the beauty behind the B Corp movement is that it's fundamentally thinking about both. It's saying everything perfect and being a tiny company with zero impact or zero scale doesn't do the world any good, and being a massive company and doing everything wrong doesn't do anything good. Like we need to be thinking about the middle part, and I think that's really important because if you start, particularly from climate, if you start walking backwards through footprints and thinking about causes effects, like you can end up at the best thing I can do for the world is to not exist. I should not travel. I should not move around. I should not consume things. I should just
sit under a
cease
tree
to
and
exist on this planet,
or
right,
or get even more grim.
And so that. Yeah, exactly. And so I don't believe that that's the answer. And so I'm very much a believer in like, yes, we have big work to do. Yes, technology is the great enabler and gives us so much leverage. And yes, it's going to take us creating more of a carbon footprint, environmental impact, all of those things to kind of go deep into the J curve and then come out with something that net is a positive benefit.
Yeah, and you mentioned cruise ships and 1 degree, which is a nice segue into the other point, which is that one of the goals of Unspun is to reduce global CO2 emissions by 1%. So to what degree do you think that that's realistically possible? What percent of emissions is fashion or jeans responsible for in general?
A 1% reduction in global human carbon emissions is massive. This is not a 5-year goal, not a 10-year goal. I think it's like roughly similar to the entire emissions of the country of Qatar. So this is a huge amount. But it scale-wise, it requires thinking along the gigaton scale. Gigatons of carbon emission, billions of tons. Anything that, as a species, if we're set out, hey, we need to reduce carbon emissions, we need to be thinking at the gigaton scale. Otherwise, the shovel is too small or the bucket is too small to like counter the amount of holes coming into the boat kind of thing. So for us, it means to get to this global scale or get to a scale that big, how does every decision we make ladder up to that? So for example, Unspun, we make custom jeans, but we're also thinking about a grander platform technology that could be used by the whole industry. Even if Unspun becomes the biggest brand in the world, and then we grow 10x beyond that, we still have less than 20% of the market. And we can't make that 1% impact by just improving 20% of the fashion industry. So inherently, we need to be partnering. We need to be a platform. So we really use this 1% mission as kind of like our first lens of like, how should we approach this problem? And an important kind of balance as we think about like, what gets us closer to 1%? And also, what can we get signed by Mr. Burns at the same time?
That makes perfect sense. And we chatted before we began filming, but I was first clued into how wasteful the fashion industry is, specifically jeans, a few years ago by a fellow marketer of mine. And he was explaining how much usable water goes into every pair of jeans, how much dye, just how enormously wasteful the process is for one pair of jeans to come to market, which was shocking to me. I had no idea. And then there are, of course, movies like The True Cost, I believe it's called, documentaries that expose fast fashion. Some documentaries are out there that expose what's happening in fast fashion and how it's being made. Like you said, it's not robotics, it's made by children's hands in other countries. So knowing that it's incredibly wasteful and then having this twist of let's 3D print clothes, which is also itself kind of funny because I love how, like, in Hollywood, movies are just a twist on a thing. Like, what if we make Die Hard, but with TikTok influencers? They're like, sold. You know, like, what if we 3D print pants and then it's sold? You know, it's just a twist on a concept. But to what degree does doing that reduce waste? Let's start there.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, the energy and carbon and effort that goes into making clothes is massive. People talk about, like, we all have a responsibility to treat the planet better. We should take shorter showers. And this is always a fascinating one to me because directionally, I'm like, okay, sure. Like everyone, yes, we should all be thinking about a mindset of how do I contribute. So I think directionally a concept like that's great. But when you think about impact, it's like, okay, take a shorter shower or buy one less t-shirt. And that's the same as not showering for almost 2 years. Or like, don't eat one cheeseburger. And that's the same as like months of water use. So really think about, like, what is the leverage that we have? Yes, because obviously I agree with any sort of mentality. We should be thinking about what to use, but like, let's use the biggest tools, the biggest shovels that we can find. And in fashion, yes, like, do these clothes use a lot of ingredients? Is this cotton really water consumption heavy? But the biggest shovel is actually that as a whole, the industry is making about 15%, 15 to 20%, depending on the year, especially during a COVID year. Just too much stuff, just creating all this excess that doesn't get sold. And in a 1.5 trillion dollar industry, there's literally hundreds of billions of dollars spent making something, moving it around the earth a couple times, getting it on that, like, Topeka, Kansas H&M shelf. It doesn't sell, and then we burn it. So for us, the biggest way to convince Mr. Burns to be more sustainable is like, hey, you're burning billions of dollars a year in product that you overproduced. How would you like to not have to commit to these numbers 9 months ahead of time and just produce when you need it? So really fundamentally at Unspun, we like the analogy of 3D printing because people are familiar with it, but we're not doing anything like, we don't make plastic clothes. It's still textiles, it's still yarn. But the way that we build it is in this crazy machine with thousands of actuators on it. And we have all of these yarns coming in and essentially like seamless clothes coming out. And we can make a pair of pants in about 9 minutes. And we can build these like fully automated factories and place them outside New York and outside LA and in the East Bay of San Francisco and in Paris and things like that, where then rather than, hey, whatever, the Stranger Things is really popular and now everyone wants these like Stranger Things themed clothing, but it's going to take us 9 months to get to it. It can be like, hey, we just start manufacturing right in the Amazon distribution center type thing. So really thinking about make the process faster so that you can make things just in time rather than way ahead of time and guess wrong on how much you need.
Well, I'm not sure when you did this, but at a certain point you posted a video that was a teaser because you call this technology Vega, right? The Vega 3D technology, and you posted a teaser of pants being as a 3D model of pants being built, sort of 3D printed. Very cool. Reminded me of The Incredibles or something like Tony Stark. And when I see that, it's like, man, I really want a pair of pants now. I want a pair of future pants. Like
yeah,
it just looks super cool. So what is the process? What is the robot doing? I mean, obviously not giving anything you can't give away.
Yeah, so there's kind of two angles of Unspun and our core technology. Fundamentally, we believe that the future of apparel should be on demand. And if we want to figure out the biggest bucket we have to take a chunk out of the climate side of apparel and also be more profitable, it's it's making stuff on demand and eliminating that unsold inventory. So the two areas of tech that we have that we need for that is one, robots. We need to build really fast. We need to build in, right by tier one cities. But the second layer of that technology is like the plumbing layer. If you go on, pick big fashion brand and click buy on the website, a factory does not turn on. The buy button on that website and factories are eons apart. There's maybe one spreadsheet that goes between those worlds. It happens once a quarter. There's probably typos in it. There's no like plumbing between there. So in this new world where Ross goes on and Ross is like, wow, I really want future pants, and clicks buy. At that point, we need to be, this is what Ross bought. This is Ross's measurements. Let's automatically optimize these pants to fit Ross, and then let's send it to the closest automated factory to Ross so that it can be built in the next 3 hours, thrown on that whatever Amazon truck and at your door by tonight. So we really think about what is necessary for this more sustainable and more profitable future as robots and software. And robots have been kind of the longer, deeper R&D project. So while we built that, we said, okay, let's make the software work. Let's commercialize the software part and prove that we can take an order, optimize it, send it to a factory, and get it to them. So today, if you go on Unspun's website, you can buy custom fit jeans. We have no sizes. We actually don't even have gender short products. You just choose a more masculine or feminine fit. And we build you jeans that actually fit your legs. Like if you're a fencer and your right thigh and left butt cheek are bigger because that's the stance that you take, like we can fit that. Yeah. If you're an amputee and you only have one leg and you want to make sure that it fits the other part well, you can build that. Sure. If you're a biker with like massive calves and a tiny waist, we can make jeans for that. So the Unspun as it exists today is all about custom fit and conventionally manufactured jeans. And starting around mid next year, we'll release our first products produced on Vega, as you mentioned, which is our robotic 3D weaving process. Cool. Like I said, it's got like thousands of yarns coming into it and almost kind of spider webby like we pull these seamless clothes out of it in a way that really makes the process so much faster by skipping steps. The old way of clothes is like yarns to fabric, flat fabric gets cookie cutter pieces cut out and then stitched together. Then you have a 3D thing. We're just going yarns directly to 3D. And so I think it's an Elon quote, like the fastest way to do something is to not do it. The fastest way to improve this process is to just skip steps, like get rid of those baton handoffs. That's where you always drop it. Do as much as you can in one chunk in a way that then just shrinks the entire process, both physically and timeline wise.
How do you feel about striking that balance between mission forward and just something that looks cool? Because you don't even have to talk about it. You can say, hey, how would you like a pair of jeans in 3 hours? I don't even need to talk about the sustainability aspect. So like, how do you juggle the messaging there?
Totally. And I think that's, very, very core to this general doing good while doing well, Mr. Burns test. Like sustainability alone is not enough. People are not going to say, ooh, that's kind of ugly, but I'll drive it. Or I'll wear it because of that. Like maybe at the very beginning, like the early Prius buyers did, but at the end of the day, people want a sexy motorcycle. They want a cool looking car. And yes, the sustainability element becomes this kind of like reinforcer of that. I certainly hope that tomorrow morning, everyone on the planet is going to wake up and jolt out of bed and go, holy shit, I should buy less stuff. And it's not going to happen. It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Like consumers, as humans, we are inherently selfish, want to buy stuff, want to be cool, want to be part of culture. Like that is not going to change. And I think that any sort of business or, global climate strategy that relies on everyone suddenly being very different is not ever going to be plan A and can't be plan A. And so I think that the mission and as more and more people become climate focused and think about how do we enact that in a way that like actually can make that like cruise ship level scale than the tiny rowboat scale is you do have to have a sexy motorcycle. You do have to have a cool electric sports car. You do have to have cool jeans that are culturally relevant. And all of those things need to be the most sustainable option and have the biggest net climate impact. So I think that unless or as soon as you stop making this needs to be the best product, period, and making sure that is what goes across Mr. Burns' desk, everything after that, if you start compromising there, It's just a slow spin out to the bottom. So yeah, for us, it's like that kind of becomes this why we're doing things and how we do things, but not what we make, if that makes sense. We still make the sexiest, coolest,
Right.
most in style, best fitting jeans. But why we do it and how we do it comes from that climate mission.
That's my motivation exactly. If I don't do it, then who will? If I don't care, then who will? But of course, at the end of the day, we're sort of up against this thing where we're trying to make something that's already well known for being almost impossible and making it even harder in a way, because nobody ever said that entrepreneurship was easy. Everybody said it was hard. Everybody says the general advice for trying to create a unicorn startup is don't do it. That's the typical advice that is that don't even try normally, right? Entrepreneurship, just as it is hard as hell / borderline impossible. And then you say, oh, that's not hard enough. I need to do it in an eco-friendly way. I need to do it where I'm actually changing it a little bit as I'm building it. And then you're just adding another layer on top of that. So it is not for the faint of heart, I don't think. I think it takes a very special kind of person to do that. But at the end of the day, it is a very logical progression from the kind of perspective that you're approaching it. It does make sense. You say, okay, I'm here. I want to build something. What do I want to build? I want to build something that works, but I also want to do good. So you can trace the steps back and it makes sense, but that does not mean that it is an easy journey by any means.
Totally, yeah, and I do think that the tides are changing from purely a capitalist standpoint. I think that having a strong sustainability angle now does give you a leg up. So even if you stripped away the like personal human responsibility, I think that more and more, someone set out to think about what is the next unicorn and how can I build that. Probably is considering the climate and sustainability angle, because culturally that's the new wave coming in. So that's exciting to see. The more that the more that Mr. Burns starts thinking that climate and sustainability is good for profits, that is a great sign. And there's certainly
Excellent.
there's a cultural drive there. There's probably a political one. I'm not smart enough to really help drive progress there, but we probably need a carbon tax at some point. And we probably shouldn't allow companies to just like destroy tons and tons of inventory. So there's other forces coming at it, but to see a capitalist profit-driven system start optimizing for climate and sustainability purely for selfish reasons is incredible news. And that's one of the big things that gets me up in the morning every day too.
That's super cool. Well, we talked about the Bay Area being separate. So what is it about the Bay Area then? Because, of course, there's that famous statement that the next Facebook is going to come from 1 mile from here, Silicon Valley, all of that. What do you think about the geographic location?
Yeah, definitely quite a journey. But I think, like anything, it's ultimately telling stories. When people are thinking about building something and you hear there's a promised land, this is where people go. Like it inherently attracts like-minded folks. And so I think a big part of like where the Silicon Valley story came from was yes, like probably at the beginning, some basic ingredients of, be it capital, be it talent, be it bigger companies that had just IPO'd and now there are suddenly people with money, but something seeded it. And then it became this kind of self-fulfilling thing of like, I want to do this and I know there's other people like me and I feel like I'm a minority, so I'm going to go find them. And that's not new, right? Like the founding of the United States, very similar kind of thing. So I think at the beginning, it was very much like, there are people like me and I want to go be surrounded by them. And I think for a long time, to have a shot at a successful massive company, you really, really needed to be in the Bay Area, because as that snowballed and as that grew, the talent went there, the money went there. Everything was really centralized on these like in-person relationships. I think COVID changed that dramatically. And I still think that Silicon Valley and San Francisco are going to be an important hub of the tech world of the future, but it's not exclusive anymore. Twitter can be just as much of being in the scene as it was being in Palo Alto, 10, 15 years ago. So I think now we're kind of seeing it shift a bit and move from, physical Silicon Valley to digital online Silicon Valley. But it doesn't mean it's going away. I think it's just evolving. Talking about COVID, everyone who did not want to be in San Francisco and Silicon Valley left. The Google engineers making a ton of money and working 26 hours a week. They're like, why would I do this when I can go live in Colorado and ski? And so, yes, like a lot of people have left the Bay Area. But what's been really cool, at least for me, is that the folks that stayed were the ones that like, no, I need to be here. Be that from a mentality, be that they also had semi truck sized robots in their lab that you can't just pack into your carry on and fly to Miami. The people that stayed in San Francisco were the ones that were like, this is home. This is where I am. So there's a lot more climate tech. There's a lot more hardware. There's a lot more biotech. And I think it's just kind of shifted now. And I think in many ways, if you're working in crypto or B2B software or any sort of purely digital product, there really is no reason to be in SF. But if you're working in robotics or anything energy or anything physical like that, San Francisco is actually getting more and more attractive because it's becoming higher concentrated there. And, to be like, oh, wow, we really need to hire an expert in this like fringe type of, I don't know, plasma engineering. And then you look at LinkedIn and you're like, wow, I can find 20 people that do this in the US and 17 of them are within 4 miles of me. That becomes one of these really kind of compounding reasons. So yeah, I think that for atoms, thinking about the bits and atoms feature of Silicon Valley, the atom side, I think will continue to grow in the Bay Area, even more rapidly, where I think the bit side has now become very digital, and there's just as much opportunity for you in being plugged in and engaging in the Twitter sphere of startup world as there was like, walking around in South Park, that neighborhood in San Francisco 5-10 years ago.
So we're wrapping up the end of our hour now. How long ago was it that you made the decision to leave K-pop robotics now?
I really started thinking about that 2016. Started a company with a best friend. We were working on, they weren't even called drones at the time, but long range drones in 2009, 2008, 9, 10, right around there. Back when every hour of flying meant you spent 10 hours like tuning PID variables and like mechanically balancing propellers. So I think I was right place, right time in the early 2010s to see something that I was really passionate about at the time, which was just like remote control airplanes, to suddenly flourish into an industry. People were like, wow, we can put a camera on this, and that's cheaper than filming with these big helicopters. So I saw that was like the first big wave that I got to be in. By certainly no means was it like me intentionally scheming as I was like, ooh, this is going to come. Like I just happened to be there. But I think getting to witness that and see drones suddenly explode, everyone wants drone footage. You then ask the insurance company if they'll insure your drone flying over a crowd of people at a concert. And they say, absolutely not. Like this is a 30-pound weight held in the air by plastic razor blades spinning at Mach 0.8. Like, no, you can't fly that over people. So for us, it was like, wow, everyone wants this, but there's a constraint here. Like, what if we made cable cameras? So we started working on these like, camera, think about a rope and then this like thing that drives it back and forth on it and a camera gimbal underneath. And it was a blast. At the time, like all we really wanted to do was, I was working on it while I was in undergrad too. So my co-founder and I would like go to class Monday through Thursday, only stay for half of our final on Thursday, and then race to the airport, fly to Taipei, set up and film this big concert Friday, Saturday, pack up Saturday night, fly back, land at like 2 or 3 a.m. Monday morning, and then be in class at 8 a.m. And all we wanted to do was just like, fly around, film Red Bull events and have fun like that. And it was certainly a blast, but after a while you're like, okay, like this is not making the world better. And so, yeah, I actually keep the voicemail on my phone where I came out of something and like saw the little like whatever Apple voicemail transcription of like, hey, Kevin, I heard you're the best in the world at filming K-pop with robots. Like we have this concert coming up in Korea. Like, can we get you there? And I was just like, me, that one at the front of the line of the privilege list, like that's what this person's dedicating their life to. So yeah, that was really kind of my like, okay, I need to be thinking about what are the like least common denominators of the future and how do I support that? So concrete was a really fascinating one. Like there's a ton of concrete in the world. China is about to create an entire United States worth of new middle-class humans in the next 10 years. And the world currently cannot produce enough like cotton, concrete, and steel to support that. So like there's massive requirements for innovation there. So that was fascinating. Obviously, energy is a base unit of a healthy future for humans. And textiles was a really fascinating one. Carbon fiber, composites, weaving generally was what got my engineer brain spinning when I met Beth and Weldon. And I think a lot of tech kind of starts out in this like, here's a cool technology like blockchain that's trying to like force feed back into a problem. I'll probably get hate for being a crypto hater on that, but this felt like a flip side of like, wow, there's a clear technology. There's pull for this rather than push. If you can automate things, it becomes a massively different world. So yeah, I was really excited by just the raw automation opportunity. I was excited by that like Mr. Burns profitability, sustainability overlap, and just the magnitude of the problem. If you ever get to come and see our robots, this is a massively complex machine.
I would love to. That sounds awesome.
It felt like a fun thing to sink my teeth into. So certainly hard. There's a favorite quote that I have, like physically and according to the laws of physics, a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but no one's told it that. So it goes about flying anyways. Like had you shown me how hard Unspun was going to be at that time where we jumped in, I think it could have scared me away, but ignorance is a strength. And I think once you like jump into the pool and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. I can keep swimming a bit. Then it's easy to keep going, but it's that first like jump that becomes a really, really hard one that you need all sorts of things to line up just perfectly for.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, on behalf of the listeners and people like myself, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you made the transition. So kudos, congratulations. It's been awesome having you on the show. We've reached the end of the time. So if there's one thing you want to promote or if you want to direct people to a certain place or another, now's the time. You can close us out here.
Super cool. Well, we're always looking for beta testers. So if anyone's interested in trying the product out and giving us some feedback, we'll send you a $40 gift card to use on your first order of jeans. So it comes out to like $160 for perfect pair of jeans. We'll custom fit into you. And if you don't like them, we'll take them back. So I can send you the link and you can, I don't know, maybe post it somewhere on there and folks can sign up there. So,
well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And with that, the official podcast recording is over.